Hey, welcome to the Amputate to Elevate podcast, where we discover what leaders have had to amputate in order to elevate to their greatest success. I'm your host, John Register, Paralympic silver medalist, U.S. Army veteran, Hall of Fame speaker, and executive coach. I began this podcast because I believe adversity is not something we overcome. It's something we adapt and innovate through. And this show is for leaders navigating high-stakes transitions who need the communication skills and courage to thrive on the other side. So if you're ready to elevate, you're in the right place. And before we get going, let me ask you, please take a moment to like, to share, and to follow. This show is so important that others need to hear about its journey as well. Now, today's guest is a pioneer of purpose, a prophet of possibility, and a practitioner of profound generosity. She was born in Japan, but her vision carried her around the globe. She became deeply concerned about inequality and set out to create real win-win ways for people and businesses to connect. As a serial entrepreneur, two-time TEDx speaker, and award-winning author, she has reshaped how leaders think about giving. She is the founder of B1G1, a global movement embedding generosity into everyday business activity. She's written books like Joy, Giving Business, and Better Business, Better Life, Better World, and her message is clear. Small actions multiplied create massive impact. She is a mother, a leader, a visionary, and one of the most humble global voices you'll ever hear, Masami Sato, and we'll meet her right after this quick introduction. Masami, arigato gozaimasu. How are you today?
Hi, John. Great to see you.
It's good.
Thank you for having me here.
Oh, of course. I'm so glad that you said yes to come on. I'm so excited to have a conversation with you. And you know, the first question we always ask each guest is what did you have to amputate in order to elevate to your success?
Great question. Judgment, I would say.
Judgment. What was going on? What's the story behind judgment? Why would you come up with that?
Well, I grew up in Japan and I was very introverted. So instead of talking about things, I always wondered what was happening in the world, right? And I feel that in my earlier development, I was always like questioning, but also perhaps judging, right, inside of me, like, why is it like this? You know, why are we buying so much and trying to get more, and whilst feeling like somewhat empty, or why is businesses doing this and creating problems in the world, or and I also judged myself a lot, like if I said this or if I said that, I might upset somebody, or am I different from other kids? And so I always felt that I didn't fit in the world or around in the places around me. And that was because I was judging myself, but I was also judging things, what I saw, and always feeling that we were all different. You know, like, so that seeing things as different and separate because we judge, were taking me away from experiencing the world in the most joyful and meaningful way. So that's why I'd say judgment.
I love that. You know, what's coming up for me when you say, you know, this judgment, because I think we do often judge ourselves. Am I worthy? Am I good enough? Can I make do? And in reality, we're created so individual. We're a fingerprint. We are a DNA strand. We're so unique, and we're created in this way that to judge ourselves is to compare ourselves to something that is not created as we are designed to have been created. So when you have kind of amputated that judgment, what has it freed you to become and freed you to do?
So this is a journey, ongoing journey. So I wouldn't say I never judge anymore. I wish I could say, but being mindful and aware of the fact that we very easily always judge, right? And then that judgment is hindering us to become the best version of us or experiencing the best out of every situation. That just having that awareness and keeping that awareness in the background is already a good thing to do. For me, some examples of how I elevated the experiences that I had by removing the judgment happened, for example, when I left Japan. When I left Japan, I couldn't speak English, and I was still introverted, and I still didn't know how to express myself. But when I was out in the world with a limited amount of money and limited ability to communicate, I had to let go a lot more than when I was in Japan, because in Japan, I could still communicate with people in my own language, and I still had a family and friends. But when I went to places around the world where I couldn't communicate with my language, I didn't know anybody, I didn't know the culture, I didn't know why people behaved in that way, or everybody looked totally different from how I looked. And it was the time, I'm 50 now. So when I first started to travel at the age of 20, and I spent a few years traveling around the world, backpacking with limited amount of money, getting by, I had to be totally vulnerable, and I had to let go. So the moment I let go of the expectation for myself to say the right thing, because I couldn't say like anything right anymore, then it freed me up in a way that I had to just to be very simple, listen, be curious, and do things with people rather than trying to say things. And that was when I started to enjoy this profound sense of connection with the entire world wherever I went. And I met some extraordinary people, amazingly kind human beings who invited me to come and eat with them, stay with them. We shared some amazing time together.
That is something I wish more Americans would do, is to get out and to explore. My first international trip, I was, I think, 13, and we had a foreign exchange student that came from France and lived with us. And then in return, I went over for 3 weeks after my graduation from the 8th grade to France, Paris, France, for an exchange as well. And that was the beginning of my journey of curiosity, of being outside of the known. I mean, the United States is a very large place, right? It's you can go 500 kilometers, and I mean 5,000 kilometers in either direction, and you're still speaking the same language. Maybe different dialects, but we're still speaking the same language. When you happen to go overseas, for us, crossing the Pacific or the Atlantic, we're no longer speaking the same language, yet we go over with a kind of this propensity of that people still should be speaking English because we live in such a vast country, but when you're overseas, like you were saying, there are countries like in Europe, you can be just within inside of 500 kilometers of a whole other country, right? And so I think that is fascinating to get out and to just explore, and how wonderfully brave of you to do that. And you learned some things that I was reading, about you in that journey. Is that like the foundation, the roots of coming into to B1G1 and seeing that? I would love for you to explain what B1G1 is, and then come back and tell us about the foundation of how you came up with this global perspective.
Yeah, thank you, John. So B1G1, for the those of you listening, sounds like a kind of strange naming of an organization. But when we started in 2007, which is 18 years ago, we saw this image of this amazing world where everything we did in our life, in our business, made a tangible, measurable difference. Such as every time you have a coffee and enjoy the morning cup of coffee, you know that the child somewhere around the world get access of life-saving water. Or every time you read a beautiful book and learn something, then you get to plant a tree. Or every time a business serves a customer, or somebody subscribes to a newsletter, what if something great happened and a child receives education, or people receive opportunity to start a business? Or so we imagine this world where our everyday activities actually create this positive impact and then create real sustainability and prosperity for all. So that was the idea of B1G1, buy one, give one. So that was kind of like the origin of our name. And but leading up to the journey of founding and running this organization, I had my own self, like a soul search, at the time of soul search. And I traveled around the world. And, during that time, even though I experienced some of the amazing kindness of human beings everywhere, and I enjoyed that time of sharing in the lives of people and understanding that we had so much in common. Whilst we looked different, spoke different language, had a different religion or cultural background, but there was so much that we shared in common. So I enjoyed that feeling of connection, but I also experienced some things that didn't make sense to me at that time, such as the children on the street. Young babies with mothers sleeping on a cold night, or kids begging on the street and not going to school, or working in a field, or people with a disability not getting any help. So I saw all of these things that I might not have seen so much in my own country, but in other parts of the world I visited, that was actually a normal reality. Nobody thought it was strange. That these things are happening. Kids were not going to school. So I wondered why we were all doing this, why we were working so hard, like my parents in Japan, who sacrificed all their time with the family to work long hours and be stressed and try to get more, right? But when we had more money and we could buy things, that buying things didn't fulfill ourselves in a real way, but we were somehow trying this. And then in the other parts of the world, people who had very little also invited me to come and stay with them or eat with them. And then I used to think, like, you don't have a lot yourself. You don't know how to feed your own kids, but you let me share the food you have. And I used to feel like almost guilty or conflicted by this idea of receiving from people who had less, in my mind. And so I tried to make sense, but I didn't know how to solve all of the problems in the world. So I moved on. But there was this profound moment when my life changed, which was when I became a mom. And when I gave birth, and I didn't initially want to have kids of my own. Like I didn't mean to create my own family, because I grew up in Japan feeling lonely and not knowing that I was actually loved, or but I kind of accidentally became a mom. And at that time, everything changed for me, because I had this profound sense of love and connection, where I felt I would do anything to make sure she will grow up feeling like being healthy, happy, and have great opportunities. So at that time, I started to really think about the kids I met along the way when I was younger. And then I thought, my daughter is simply lucky. Lucky to be born in a place where she was safe, she had opportunity, access to healthcare. But what if she wasn't lucky? What if she was born in like other kids who didn't have so much? And if the entire world said, sorry, this is how it is. We are all small and we can't fix problems in the world. So we just take it as it is. So at that time, I decided to start a business and I became an entrepreneur and started the food company because food was my passion at that time. And because, food was the way I connected with people when I was traveling and cooking, and I was a chef. And so I naturally went into food business as an entrepreneur and worked really, really hard for like 5 years. To start from tiny takeaway food business in New Zealand to moving to Australia and starting this frozen meal production company. And at one point of time, we had a distribution of about 150 stores across multiple states selling our frozen, healthy frozen meals. But then I realized for entrepreneurs and business owners like us, doing good or giving back or those things that actually became like almost one day, one day when we are bigger, when we are more successful, when we have more profit, more money, then we would do something great. And so one day this simple thought came to me, and then I thought, what if instead of trying to do something one day, something great one day, we did something good but did it every day? And then we decided to implement this buy one, give one, be one, do one idea into our own business to say every time we sell a meal and serve a meal, then we give a meal to a disadvantaged child so that child get encouraged to go to school and receive that one free meal and then focus on study. And so that was 2007, and we decided to actually eventually sell our business in Australia and then move to Singapore to start B1G1 as the business program and the initiative to invite businesses to align with this idea of making a difference every day. And it's been 18 years in making.
It's such a beautiful story. And every time I'm looking away, you say something, I'm taking a note because I want to explore it further. And one of the things that you said that I wrote down here is human sustainability. You're really creating an ecosystem, or have created an ecosystem, where the purchase of one impacts somebody else in a way that they can eat what was just produced by you and the purchase of that buy. And you founded, B1G1 on the belief that small actions, when multiplied, can transform the world. So for leaders who are in high stakes transitions, what do you think the biggest mindset shift is that they need to let go of or amputate in order to embrace the power of being small?
Yeah. So the idea of power of small, it's fundamentally one of the most profound things I learned through my journey of traveling. And, I also spend time with farmers in Japan. Like when at a period of time when I was back in Japan, after traveling, I tried to get a normal job and I worked in a company and I couldn't kind of fit in. So I decided to try to find another way, which is to find real self-sufficient, sustainable living. And then I moved to countryside for about 2 years, spending time with farmers to try to learn how to make everything, how to create less waste, how to exchange things like make food and make everything, so I did that for 2 years. And when I did that and I was close to nature and learning from farmers, there was one profound thing I learned, even though I didn't learn to become totally self-sufficient, right? Because I realized that disconnecting myself from the entire world to become a hermit wasn't right for me. In the end, like I was judging the world. So removing all the judgment, I actually learned something really simple and profound during that time, which was that we were all part of this great ecosystem of the nature and of the world, and we were all important parts of how everything existed, such as, how do we create sustainability in farming? And it's very simple. Sustainability in farming comes from taking care of nature and giving back to the soil and learning to live with what's around us, the seasons, the climate, and the ecosystem, and biodiversity around the land. And so that's really the key to creating real long-term prosperity and sustainability, and having gratitude for the part we get to play, as a little part. And so I think in life, right, like life is short. Actually, no matter what, like how much money you have or how powerful you are, we all have a limited amount of time. We are born at one point of time and we are going to leave this planet. So in that limited time that we have, what is the real reason for being? Why are we here? And I believe personally that it's about experiencing the meaning of being where we are, who we are, and being part of this greater whole. So when we understand the power of small and the small part we get to play in this lifetime or with our business, but also appreciating every small, everybody who look different, feel different, and every animal or, living things or bacteria or everything that part of this world, our life suddenly transforms to actually make us, experience life differently. And then the meaning of success might change into meaningfulness and enjoyment, the real sense of prosperity, long-term feeling of achievement, rather than always chasing a big thing, big success, but always feeling empty, or always feeling a little bit insecure that this success may not last, this joy may not last.
Yeah, you have a really good way of sharing and bringing the question into the light of how we all can be better. And I'm going to ask you a question in a minute about your daughter, and I'm going to give you a chance to contemplate, because I think you have 2 daughters now.
One daughter and my second one is a son.
The son. So, you got a boy, girl. Okay, boy, girl. That's good. So I'm going to ask you a question about them in a moment. But something something came up, and I wanted to ask you about this, and then I'll ask my other question. Many companies, they really struggle to, I guess, embed this purpose beyond profit for the sustainability, right? They're trying to find ways. Sometimes they just check the box saying that they're doing this. You're talking about really getting in with the earth, and even doing so, you weren't all the way sustainable, like you said, like living as a hermit. But what do leaders need to let go of in their thinking about, either corporate social responsibility, CSR, or employee or, ESG, to truly create meaningful driving impact in the organizations? Like what's the thinking that they need to release in order to really embrace this?
Actually, I go back a little bit to judgment, like the opening thing, right? Amputating the judgment.
Yeah, the judgment. Well,
yeah, like
you're an earth person. You just want to.
But it's actually very simple because, the CSR and the ESG and everything became a little bit complicated, right? Because if we try to do the right things, judging everything else, then it becomes hugely complicated because everything could go wrong, everything. But when we get to the real essence of why is sustainability important, then I think every person has this personal connection to this theme because, for example, perhaps some of these leaders are parents, right? And even if they might not have kids, they have family members who care, or the partners or friends, so we have some people we care. And then we might care about our own future. But if we think about the prosperity of our children and the grandchildren, is it actually like ESG and the CSI issues, or is it very personal issue that if you want to ensure that your kids grow up happy and healthy and have great opportunities in life, and the world will continue to be the great place they can enjoy their lives and thrive, then we have to be doing something. And we have to feel actually connected to that idea at a personal level. Because when we actually have a genuine intent to do good and to create good outcomes for people we love and care about, and we are intentionally expressing that and inviting people to part of it, everything that we do have a much deeper resonance rather than, we just doing this to tick the box or avoid being criticized. Like there's so much of this trying. Yeah. But if we remove that trying to do something right because we judge or don't want to be judged, it becomes a very complicated matter.
Yeah.
But when we come from what we believe is the right thing because we genuinely care, then when we actually make small actions to see what happens when we do it this way or that way, we have a humility to learn from the experience and even mistakes that we make. And we can be very human and humble and transparent about those learning and mistakes we make as well. That makes what we do actually much more resonant and powerful because it makes other people want to be part of that.
That's so good. That is great, and allowing it to come to us as get the why behind it instead of using the acronyms all the time that we can discard and judge. We can judge acronyms. We don't really want to judge people too much. So
the ESG is like a trending keyword, another acronym, right?
Right,
we
right.
have another way to translate ESG. So instead of ESG being, the environment, social and governance, like ESG, what if it was embedded social good? Embedded social good. So we embed goodness into everything, every conversation, every choices and the decisions we make. We always think about how can we create more good for the people involved, the situations, and the real long-term prosperity. So if we actually embed it in every moment, every decision, then that's actually becomes much simpler and more embracing of whole.
I like that. Embed social good. That is good right there. To stop us from judging. Okay, I want to go to my question about your children, and I'm glad you're not a hermit because if you were, you probably wouldn't have your children. So that's a good thing there. So we have you're the mother of two teenagers.
No, they're grown now.
They're grown now.
Yesterday was my son, the second child, 21st birthday.
Oh my gosh,
yeah, 21st. So I graduated from.
But you look like you're 21, so I don't know how you have older kids like that. And parenting has its own leadership. It's like its own leadership laboratory. What have your children taught you about leadership that like no boardroom ever could as they're growing? And you know what? Think about that. Think about it for a second, and I'll come back in about 50 seconds after I pay some bills. All right? Here we go.
Yes.
Now, before we hear Masami's next answer, I want to pause for a quick note. If you're leading through change, you already know. It's not the obstacle that defines you. It's how you choose to respond. That's where my work comes in. I don't just give keynotes, I deliver transformational experiences that equip leaders to amputate what's holding them back and elevate into their next level of success. And as my colleague Jade Simmons says, she is a phenomenal speaker herself, says, I'm not just a keynote speaker, I'm the main event. So if you're looking to inspire your team at your next conference or leadership summit, I'd love to partner with you. So visit johnregister.com to learn more. That's John Register, JohnRegister.com to learn more. Now back to our guest, Masami Sato. And Masami has thought about her answer about her children during that little commercial break we had.
Well, I think, I don't know if I learned too much about how to become good parent because I was so busy, doing everything, running a business.
Well, no, it's more what you've learned from them.
Well, right? What I learned from them and from the experience, right, like of having kids and the family, is that we can't it's better not try not to, it's better not to try to control because often parents try to control kids, right? Like do this or don't do this or study more or, work harder or, and then it becomes very stressful. And I didn't have a time to be stressed about the children because I had lots of other things to worry about, and then work on. So I think my parenting journey was really about not controlling and understanding that every child is different and be loving and be you, be me. And so I really never said study or, that. I never really tried to control them, but they ended up actually good human beings and, independently doing well in their own way, but they are different.
Yeah.
And I think that I was very lucky to have I don't know, I would say easy, but in a sense, easy role to play because I got to enjoy being there with them during the time we were together. At the same time, I learned to let go more through that process. And that on its own was a great thing because with kids, you can never, control things. Even with business, you can have a strategy, right? Or a process or tactic. Sometimes in parenting, it doesn't apply. So all you could do sometimes is to just let go and be.
You mean nothing ever went the way you wanted to go in business? Is that what you're saying?
Oh, no. Wait, well, that's kind of also true. That when you have a fixed expectation, often it doesn't work out that way. But business has actually much more kind of a process-oriented thinking about this is how you evaluate the financials and then you track all the metrics in line with the KPI and the greater kind of fall, and this is how you hire people, train them and use systems. And so, but the family is not like that. It's just things happen to you and you have no choice. You didn't have a interview questions to choose your kids, and then you didn't have a quarterly measurement to go oh, you are not hitting this KPI. We have to have a performance conversation, quarterly performance conversation about this. And what's the return on the investment on this spending?
So I guess I did it all wrong as a parent. I'm just kidding. That's so funny. Here's your KPI for the day and for the quarter. Right.
Yeah.
That's
but
funny.
there's this. Can I share something?
Of course. Yeah.
That's related to this, but seemingly unrelated, but it's related. So I spent some time learning about sustainable business models, right? But in terms of how long businesses last. Right? So because normally how you measure the business success is how much money the business make or how quickly it's growing based on the percentage, right? But I looked at how long businesses last as another metric of success. And when you look at the recorded long-lasting businesses around the world, and then particularly you look at the businesses that are going more than 100 years or 200 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And then let's take a 200-year-old group, right? Around the world, so among all of the 200 years or longer lasting businesses, 50%, more than 50% of those businesses are Japanese businesses.
Mm.
And then Japan has like roughly around 5% of global population. So it's not a huge country like America, but somehow it has so many long-lasting businesses there. And then when you start to understand what's the common factor among all of these businesses, then they are mostly all family businesses.
Mm.
And then there are all sort of reasons, right? Like because in the long time ago, most businesses started as a family business, right? Like so that too. But how come like some of these family businesses can stay for so long, generations after generations? And it's because this fundamental thinking of those businesses, like family businesses have family values. And they make decisions as a family. But when you look at some of the most financially successful businesses in the world today, their lifespan is actually much shorter. Fortune 500, like if you look at the average number of years those businesses last, it's actually quite short, surprisingly.
Oh.
So you can achieve financial success by thinking like shareholder business, right? Like public company, and always prioritizing shareholder values and the return on the investment and the profitability and the quarterly performance of the CEO, and the kick CEO out when they don't perform according to the required expectation. But the family businesses and that last long time are making decisions for longer term. And also longer term sustainable prosperity, which really requires trust building.
Yeah.
And making sure that the community itself thrive, because they cannot just become successful and stay there if the communities and the environment around them is suffering. So that, like, if we think about the real meaningful success, right, in the long run, and really thinking about the legacy, then businesses can even also think like a family. And the learning as a parent of, actually, we can't just control things. And the most important role that we can play is to be loving.
Yeah.
It's like actually quite profound.
It's very profound. It's very profound. But when you look at the family dynamic, and can you create the family dynamic in a corporation or business for long-term sustainability, for growth, and making decisions as a family instead of looking at it as making decisions for the profit. I think that's a great another avenue we could take and go down. As we come to the close of this, I start kind of the same way that I finish the same way I started, in asking a question around, we cannot change the past. You're talking about a future. So I'm imagining a future. You imagine a future where maybe your children are running the family business now, or something that's happening maybe 10 years, 20 years down the road of what you would like to see happen with B1G1. And what is it right now that you think is needed to be amputated in order to make that reality happen?
Well, I think still relate back to the idea of amputating judgment, right? But one form of judgment that is actually most limiting for leaders with good intention to do good is self-doubt. Because it's a form of judgment that you impose on yourself because you believe that you are apart and you are you, like you have to prove yourself to show your value, or you need to be better than others, or so that form of judgment actually takes away from the maximum ability and the power we can have to really create the biggest difference as leaders. So I think that it's the elimination, amputation of judgment start from self-judgment, because when you stop judging yourself, you would also stop judging others.
I love it. So beautiful. Thank you so much for being on with us. I took away so many notes. Judgment and self-doubt, when those are released, it will help us to elevate our lives, because we're not holding on to that. We can just focus on what most people we say over here, keep the main thing, and we can elevate in that space. So thanks for being on. Hold on for 1 second while I close out the show. What an inspiring conversation. Masami, thank you so much for the power of the small actions that can truly transform the world. Your message is clear. And to you, all of our listeners, thank you for tuning in to the Amputate to Elevate podcast. If today's episode moved you, please like, share, and follow it so more leaders can join us in this movement. Now, don't forget to sign up for the Elevate Life Executive Strategy Session at johnregister.beehive.com. That's johnregister.beehive.com, where we dive in deeper and give you tools to navigate your own high-stakes transition. Once again, I'm John Register. Until next time, go forth, inspire your world. Bye for now.